Hi, grade 7. This is a math video talking about Chapter 5, Form 2C, the practice test. Chapter 5, Form 2C. So we're going to take a look at some assorted problems here and see if we can get you going on this. All of this should be review. It's the practice test. You have the study guide and review. You have the chapter lessons. But let's start with number 1. Write 1/5 as a percent. I'm going to do 1/5. I'm going to do 2/5. If I were to change that into a percent, I'd first change it into a fraction as 100 as its denominator. That's a pattern of 20, so I get 40, which is 40%. That's all I'd do for number 1. Change it into a fraction that has 100 as its denominator. Number 2 says change this into a percent. I'm not going to change 8/20ths. I'm going to change, how about 9/20ths. I'd simply put 9 over 20, change it to a fraction that has 100 as its denominator, which would be 45 because it's a pattern of multiplying by 5, which gives us 45%. How would I do number 3? 65% as a fraction in the simplest form. Well, I'm not going to do 65%, but I will do 55%. I just make it into a fraction that has 100 as its denominator. Simplify by dividing by 5. I got 11/20ths. Well, the next one, change 0.51% into a decimal. I'm not doing that one. But what if it said 0.63%? And it should change that into a decimal. Well, there's a couple ways to do it, but the way I would choose to do it, one of the things we talked about was you can change a decimal into a percent into a decimal by just simply moving the decimal point 2 places over. But the question is, do I move it to the right or to the left? Well, in this particular case, we're moving it to the left, and so that would give me 0.0063. That is the decimal value of this percent. Now the question is, why does that work? It works because percent means hundredths. I could write this as this fraction, and then I could take 0.63 and do an actual division problem, and if I did this actual division problem, the answer in the division problem would be this number up here. So in essence, we're just taking the decimal point, which was here, and we're moving it 2 places to the left because we're dividing by 100. Okay. What about something like number 5, where they're taking this number and they want to change it into a percent? What percent value is that? Well, I'm not doing that one, but I will do this one. How about 0.712? This is kind of the reverse of the previous problem. If I want to change from a decimal to a percent, that's really just moving the decimal point 2 places to the right. Or in other words, it's like multiplying by 100. This is 7.12%. How do I know that? Well, let's look at a similar problem. Isn't this 7/100ths as a fraction? And isn't 7/100ths 7%? So what do we got here? We've got something that's very similar to 7%. It's just a little bit bigger. So isn't this a little bit bigger than 7%? Yep. And all I had to do was think about moving the decimal point 2 places to the right. So use that same logic up here. About number 6, write 31.6% as a decimal and as a fraction in simplest form. 31.6. Well, I'm not going to do that one, but I'll do one similar. What if I had 15.2%? I want it as a decimal and as a fraction. 2 different answers I got to seek here. Decimal and fraction, right? Decimal, I'm just moving the decimal point 2 places to the left. 0.152. Done. Fraction, I'm going to look at this and ask myself, what place values am I occupying? I'm occupying the tenths, the hundredths, and the thousandths. So that's really 152 1,000ths, isn't it? And can I simplify that? Yep. Divide by 2, I get 500, and I get 76. Divide by 2 again, I get 38 over 250. Divide by 2 again, I get 19 over 125. There's my fractional answer, and there's my decimal answer for this particular number up here. Okay, how about number 7? Which one's greater, 25% or 14/57ths? Well, if it were me, I've been thinking about, is there a way I can change these into a form where I can compare them? Well, for example, I know that this is 25/100ths, but that still doesn't help me yet because I don't have common denominators, right? What if I change them into decimal numbers? This as a decimal number is 0.25. What's this as a decimal number? I don't know. 57 goes into 14 0 times, but it goes into 140 2 times, and it goes into, bring down the 6, it goes into this 4 times. 8, 2. Hey, look at that. Which one's bigger? It's got to be this one, right? Uh-oh, whoops, I did number 7 for you accidentally. Sorry. Oh well, that's number 7. This one has to be bigger than this one. Number 8, what percent of 80 is 16? And they want us to solve that by means of a percent proportion. Do you remember how to use percent proportions? You put the percent over 100. The number that follows the word of is the base on the one side. The remaining number is the top number. In this case, we're solving for x because we don't know the percent. We don't know the percent, so solve this, and that's your percent value. But don't forget to put a percent sign on it. Number 9 is a little bit different. Number 9 says 15 is 25% of what number? Well, the 25%, that's 25/100ths. Of what number tells me I'm going to put an x down here because I don't know the base, and the 15's on top. So I'm going to be solving that for number 9. Number 10, I'll let you do that one on your own, but don't forget to use a percent proportion. And yes, you can use a calculator. 11 through 15 is telling you to compute mentally. Actually, it's 11 through 13, isn't it? Compute mentally. How would I do number 11? 5% of 240. I'm not going to do 5% of 240, but I will do 5% of 300. I know that 5% is really 5/100ths, which is 1/20th. I would take 1/20th times 300 over 1 in my head. Hey, let's divide by 10 to make that a 2, and divide by 10 to make that a 30. So now I've got 30 over 2, which is 15. So that's how I do something like 11, 12, 13. Okay, how about number 12 where it says 30% of 1,500? I'm not going to do that one, but I'm going to do 30% of, say, 900. According to that purple table in your textbook, 30% is 3/10. So I'm going to take 3/10 times 900, divide by 10, divide by 10, and I get 270 as my answer there. How about number 14 where it says estimate 33% of 209? 33% of 209. I'm not going to do 209, but I'll do, say, how about 178? Okay. When I look at that purple table for 33%, 1/3 jumps out to me as being much easier to work with. And then I'm going to change this to 180 because 180 works well with that 3. And when I do it, and I do the simplifying, I get an answer of 60 in this case. 1/3 of 180 is 60. I'm going to jump to the back side. Jump to the back side. At the top, they're asking us to solve with percent equations. Their first problem, 100 is 20% of what number? I'm going to actually do this one. Remember that the fact that is the equal sign and of is multiplication. Remember that what number is going to be our variable. And that 20%, we need to change it to decimal number to work with it easier. And then we just solve this. How do we solve it? Well, n's attached to this, so let's get rid of it by dividing both sides of the equation by 0.20. And I get an n equaling whatever this is. What's 100 divided by 0.20? Well, that's the same thing as 20 into 10,000, because I have to move the decimal point over 2 places to get rid of that decimal point. And when I do that, I get an n value of 500 when I solve that. 20 goes into 10,500 times. How about the next one, where they're dealing with finding a percent? Remember, that's a little bit tricky, because when you find that percent value, first of all, it's going to be in a decimal form, and we're going to have to change it out of that decimal form. I'm going to do one similar. I'm not going to do the exact problem. 40 is what percent of, how about 200? Okay, 40 is what percent of 200? Well, I'd write 40 equals n percent times 200. Then I'd divide both sides of the equation by 200. And I get an n percent equaling whatever this is, which is, in simplified form, that'd be 1 over 50, wouldn't it? Nope, it'd be 1 over 5. I'm sorry, 1 over 5. Now, remember, this is n percent. So it really means n over 100. And this could also be written as 0.2. 1/5 is the same as 0.2. So how am I going to get n by itself? I got to do the opposite of dividing by 100. I'm going to have to multiply both sides by 100. So 1/5 times 100, n over 100 times 100, and my n equals 20%. Because remember, our goal is to find the percent value in this, right? Our goal is to find the percent value. So that's what we did. We changed n percent into n, and when we do that, that changed that decimal number into a percent value of 20%. I'm going to stop at that point. 7th graders, talk to me if you have more questions. We'll probably work through some of the backside together.